Olivia Dunne, or Livy, as
good.
you might know her, is a gymnast. She's a college athlete, but more importantly, she is an influencer. And she recently did an interview with Elle where she talked about, I guess, the dark side of her fame. So let me just read an excerpt here. With all the attention and the zeros in her bank account has come a dark side of fame, one that women college athletes are more vulnerable to than their male counterparts. There are trash websites that follow her every move, over-sexualizing even the most innocent of her posts. And she is famous, to put it simply, because she's hot. I don't think that she's famous because of her accomplishments in gymnastics. And that's why a lot of these other female gymnasts at LSU, which is where she's a student, have not reached the level of fame that she has. Mm-hmm. She took advantage of the fact that social media was a thing when she was growing up. She started when she was very young, had like basically a stage mom who encouraged her to do that. And there's even like a part where she says she drew a blue check mark on her bedroom mirror to manifest getting a verification mark on Instagram when she was like 11 years old. That's kind of dark.
In the age we live in now, right, where like fame is now the goal. Like it's no longer, but it's not even about accomplishing anything, right? She's not saying I want to be famous for this reason. She's just saying I want to be known by enough people where getting a verified check mark would matter. See, now if she would have been a psychic, she would have known that she could have just bought that check mark like 10 years later. It would have been way easier.
And there's this new development where college athletes have recently been permitted to make money off of their name, image, and likeness and get brand deals to get famous on social media. But I think the New York Times estimated that of the like 520,000 college athletes that exist in this country, only about 1,000 of them have made any money off of name, image, and likeness. And you can probably cut that in half and then cut it in half again to get to the actual celebrities that have come out of this.
And
she's at the forefront of it.
Here's what she looks like when we say that she's famous for being attractive. She's a lot of people are like, look, she's not even that good at gymnastics. Well, you don't need to be that good at gymnastics if you're smoking hot.
Yep.
The headlines say sex sells atop a story on women athletes.
Yes! Yes!
Hold, please. Thank you.
Hold, please. I want a second crisis party. Second crisis party.
Okay, let me continue. The headline says sex sells atop a story on women athletes and name, image, likeness that focuses on her looks and discounts the skills and years of hard work it took for her to amass such a large audience. There are plenty of beautiful blonde women in college gymnastics. Olivia is the only one with 13 million plus followers.
Wow.
And then there are people who blame her when her testosterone-crazed male fans get out of line, as they did at a meet at the University of Utah earlier this year. This was back in January this year at a private gymnastics meet, which I'm sure in 2010 or any time in the 2000s would have had zero attendance. A bunch of her male fans gathered outside of the building, lined up as if this were a meet and greet, and were screaming for her. And when other people walked out of the building, they accosted them because they weren't Livy. So how about we watch that video and we'll get our first impressions.
All right, here we go. That was creepy sounding. Holy
Give us
crap.
Livy!
Okay.
We want her! We want her! We want Livy! Livy! I love you, Livy! I shall have a question, Livy. I shall have a question, please. Where's Livy? I'm serious. Is she where Livy is? I'm not gonna know!
Oh boy. Okay. Men, have some dignity. Like,
this has to be played up for the TikTok.
it's gotta be, right? Like
But
okay,
the willingness to be on camera while doing this is crazy to me.
here's like people were
shameless.
making comparisons. They're like, oh well, when girls do this with boy bands, nobody cares, but when
there
guys
were tons
do
of
it,
comments like that. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
When
it's
girls
more
do it
in-
at a Justin Bieber concert, it's okay, right?
Literally, yes.
That's a sexist comment. It's okay for girls to scream and go crazy for some famous guy or a boy band, but when a bunch of boys do it, you make them sound like criminals. You hate men.
They're not criminals. It is weird when guys do it. I'm sorry.
They're not criminals. They're just cringy.
Guys,
right, because they're not supposed to be so emotional, right? Like,
yeah,
they're
exactly.
hysterical. It's like,
that's what I'm saying.
You're
like,
unhinged.
When women act hysterical, especially, you know, fans of Justin Bieber or NSYNC or Backstreet Boys, these were like 13-year-old girls. When they're acting hysterical and super emotional about a celebrity, yeah, it's weird, but it's just what you expect because of female nature, and men and women are different. So when men act like that, it's weird. It's off-putting. It's repulsive.
Yeah.
And also, it's just super out of line to harass other people who are coming out of the meet for not being Livy, simply. Like, this New York Post reported on this when it happened. Olivia Dunne tweeted after the fact saying, "I'll always appreciate the love and support from you guys, but if you came to a meet, I want you to ask you to please be respectful of the other gymnasts and gymnastics community as we're just doing our job." So she did kind of denounce this behavior. But another person who was at this meet spoke about their experience of walking out into this mess. She said, "As we were walking to the car, the group swarmed my daughter and her teammate. They literally said to their faces, 'You're not Livy, but you'll do. Can we get a picture?' The group also called my daughter Livy 2.0. They were so rude and disrespectful." This is one of the gymnast's moms. And then another one said when she walked out, they asked, "Are you Livy's mom? Are you Livy's mom?" Thinking like, I just can't understand the mindset of someone standing outside that they think Livy is going to walk out and you're in the crowd and she's going to lock eyes with you. And she's going to walk up to you and be like, "Hi, what's your name? You just seem like different than the other guys."
Look, you can't blame a guy for having that.
Do you want to go out
thinking,
sometime?
Is that every man's fantasy?
It's not realistic. It's not going to happen.
We were talking about this earlier, like that level of delusion that men have to like go out on a limb like that is probably the reason why the human race hasn't gone extinct. But social media has just made it so much more toxic and widespread and hysterical.
What do you think about the fact that this is now the type of thing where a girl can, in college, as a mid-level athlete, you can reach a level of fame where now you can't go to school anymore because the crowds for you are now so large? Yeah. There's a $20 super chat there from Francisco Sanchez Jr.
He said, "It's okay for women to throw their underwear at a Drake concert. There's nothing to see here." Well, it's not okay when they do that. It's undignified and gross, but at least when women are hysterical, it's just part of their nature. When men do it, it's different because men are different.
I'm not saying that you as a man don't have the right to do that. I'm saying that it's just weird. It's weird to me.
We've been reiterating for so long that women and men are fundamentally different. And therefore, when you do something, like when a man does something that a woman would do and it's considered acceptable, it's not acceptable when the man does it, and it's not a double standard. It's just a standard that we've always had in society.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's okay when women throw their underwear at a Drake concert or
it was a bra.
Whatever
actually.
they do.
Did you see that story? So okay, like a lady threw a bra on stage at a Drake concert, and it went viral. Because he like picked it up and was like, "Whoa!" Because it was like, it's like a 38G bra, a 36G bra, and like I guess she got a sponsorship from Playboy from this.
Like, so insane.
Yeah,
good for her.
I hate the internet.
Like but like the internet encourages that, right?
So
like
she said that at LSU she can't attend classes in person anymore. She does all of her classes remotely now because sometimes she gets recognized on campus. People ask her for pictures, stuff like that. She didn't get into much detail here, but she said, "There were some scares in the past, and I just want to be as careful as possible. I don't want people to know my daily schedule and where I am."
Question, what did she expect to happen?
Well, that's one of the excuses they said here. Many have used the tired, age-old excuse of, "What did you expect? Look at what you're wearing. You were asking for it, blah, blah, blah." But I don't think that it's discounting her success as an athlete to just say the truth, which is that she's famous for her looks and not her athleticism. And she knows that probably just as well as we do. But claiming that you're getting oppressed and your accomplishments are getting, you know, downgraded just because you're a woman gets you more coins and also gets you more interviews to preach about it in magazines.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly she's famous for her looks,
right?
Not her accomplishments.
Well, and like in a lot of ways, being an influencer is like its own skill set now. You have to know, like, you have to stay on top of trends. You have to,
she's running a whole business. They said she's making like $3.4 million just this year.
Yeah.
Off of what?
Off of doing brand deals, because now she's allowed to use her name, image, and likeness as a college athlete to make money, which previously was banned. And I bet like a lot of college athletes from the 2000s and 2010s are probably thinking like, if that had been me, I would have been set for life. But because of this unfair, arbitrary rule, now only she gets to do it. Like, I would be seething about that if I were them.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fundamentally different. You said still a majority of the name, image, likeness deals are still men, right?
Yes, but it's people like LeBron James' son. Yeah. Like, you have a built-in audience from being in that family. And
in a lot of ways, like, look, here's another fundamental difference. Like, the men who get well known for these brand deals in college are going to be doing so on the backs of their talent more than their appearance, because we value men's skills and ability to perform a task well.
Okay, but if your last name is if you're LeBron James' son, or your last name is Manning.
That's one example. The rest of them are going to be college athletes who are going to be there because of their, well, then exclude those, the rest of them. How many of are still men who are just good at sports?
The men are also the ones who are more likely to be career athletes and go into professional leagues, because things like the WNBA, you'll make more money being a college athlete at this point and taking brand deals than leaving college and going into the WNBA.
Yeah.
So you just have to be good enough.
Just a fact.
Yeah.
You have to make money off of your personality and your looks.
And look, there's nothing wrong with her doing that. She's going to leverage this into a very successful business. Indeed, she's had to learn how to run a business on her own in a way that very few people actually learn how to do, because colleges don't actually teach you how to run a business or how to be in any way independently minded. They teach you how to be a drone for someone else. So she's actually getting some great firsthand experience at that. It's just that the skill, the thing that she has that's most marketable is her beauty. And there's nothing wrong with that. I do find a little bit of the, what did she say? She's like, I don't understand, but you said it was a little condescending, what she was saying, or like she sounded like she was pretending like she... Oh,
one of her actual quotes from this interview is, "I can't help the way I look." And that was like very difficult to listen to, because it's like, you know that you're successful for your looks. And like, she got all of these followers during COVID when she wasn't doing college sports.
Yeah.
She was just making gymnastics videos on the beach.
It is just crazy to me now that we live in a world where you can be that famous at that young of an age when it becomes a problem for other people in your school. And we wonder why people these days are addicted to fame and addicted to social media clout and feel the need to have their opinion heard on everything, to get involved in everything online, because they're addicted to the attention.
Yeah, I would say it's always been like that. It's just now more than ever. It's amplified. And if she wanted to get recognized just for her gymnastics, she could. She just wouldn't have as big of a following. Yeah. Realistically.
Yeah. And there's plenty of great, there's a $10, we'll wait to, we'll read that one now. So Francisco Sanchez Jr. says, I mean, Serena Williams is an all-time great tennis player, beat Maria Sharapova constantly, but Maria got the sponsors. Beauty is a hard magnet to resist. Yep. But Serena Williams is also a bigger name. I would actually say she's a bigger name, and has probably parlayed it into more success. Both of the Venus and Serena Williams, both. They just had a movie.
Maria, like Sharapova, one of the best?
Yeah.
Sorry to interject, but yeah, she's also very talented as well, and beautiful. So it's not just her looks.
But like for the men, like the looks are just usually less important, like unless you're like or like if you have like a bad boy, like a Dennis Rodman had his own image that was based as much around who he was as a personality as it was his ability, you know, as
being
a basketball
friends with the
player.
North Korean dictator.
Yes,
pretty,
for being
pretty eccentric,
being the one who was going to stop World War III on a consistent basis. Always Dennis Rodman, right? Here's a thing him recently where he like, I guess he spoke at like a Pride event or something like that. So. Dennis Rodman, man. But Rodman. You know, it is what it is. Do you think this is the type of thing that colleges will have to end up? Because we talked about how the college had to bring in security for these events.
Yeah,
right?
They started hiring private security for their private gym meets after this incident happened with all of these guys gathering outside, which they should have been doing anyway, probably. But now I'm sure Livy has her own private security too.
She can afford it.
Yeah.
She can afford her own private security.
Because of the fame.
In regard to getting blamed for her fans' erratic behavior, she said, "It's not a girl's responsibility how a man looks at her or how he acts, especially when you're doing your sport and that's your uniform. I can't help the way I look." That's what she said. "And I'm going to post what I feel comfortable with. It's hard to handle at times, definitely, because I'm just a 20-year-old student. I think people do forget that."
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that she's to blame for the way her fans act. No.
And the success seemed to have happened fairly rapidly. So, you know, it's something that she had to learn to navigate very, very quickly. But I really do think that this is becoming a cultural issue where people are chasing the fame more and more. Right. And it's why we're so depressed as a culture. Like all the women want to be Olivia Dunne and the men want to be, I mean, what's a male version of Olivia Dunne? I guess if you want to say LeBron James, everyone wants to be somebody famous online, but those people are very few and far in between. And it can be depressing for a lot of people if you work that hard for something and don't realize that what you're essentially trying to hit is the lottery, and very few people are actually going to be the ones to do that.
And you may not even like it when you're there, and then you can't really take it back.
I mean, how many celebrities talk about like how fame ends up being a curse for them, and they end up not liking it that much? There's a $20 one there from Disco Jensen.
Says, "I woke up back in 2012 and slowly watched all the conspiracy theories be proven true. It's going to take a hard cultural shock to divert course at this point. What's going on in China and Russia is proof it's spreading."
Belief? Thoughts on that? I actually think it's too late.
Yeah, no, it is definitely.
I think that the culture, I think that this started long before.
I think the internet is the biggest thing that ever
happened
to humanity and might ever happen to humanity. And the fact that we're living at this time is like, it's kind of mind blowing, but I think like God chose us for such a time as this, and, you know, gave you this tool, if you want to see it that way, so that you can use it for either good or evil. Yeah. So choose the good.
I think that for this, like what we need to, like parents start, you know how like we talked about it last Friday on IRL, like about having you have to have the conversation with your kids about how to get pulled over by the cops, right? And like they were talking about how like, oh, only certain groups of people have to do that. Like, no, everybody who's smart, their parents should teach them the proper way to get pulled over by the cops. Yeah. I think now, as we become the generations who had the internet for longer periods of time when we were younger, it's going to be the duty of this generation to teach their kids how to manage the internet and not get depressed. Like, you know, like you have to be able to throw a hard line to your kids and say, like, look, you cannot let this rule your life. And I know that sounds insane given how important phones and internet are to most of like what we do in everyday life now. But the trappings of these things are addictive, and this has gone on for a long time. People have sought fame for as long as people have been around, for as long as movies have been a thing, and these things were part of the culture. We need to teach the kids, the next generation, like, you don't need to be Livy Dunne. You don't, like, there's nothing wrong with being Livy Dunne. If that happens to you, then God bless, I suppose. But you don't need to be Livy Dunne. You don't need to strive for that to fulfill your self-worth. What you need to do is focus on things that bring you joy, focus on goals that are going to get you ahead in life. And if the internet are the tools that help you do that, that's great, but you still have to use them with caution.
Yeah, and the internet can't just make you depressed, it can make you happy, which is just as bad, because then you're addicted to the internet for your happiness and for your sense of identity, and it like inadvertently is going to direct who you become.
Yeah. There's a $20 one there from Patriot American.
He said, to be honest, I think Livy has the potential to become both an influencer as well as an Olympic gymnast, despite all the craziness she's caught up in. Well, that's interesting, because she doesn't seem to have any aspirations of continuing gymnastics after her senior year, which is coming up, of college. She has aspirations of being like a business owner and doing the influencer thing as her job now. I don't think she's really interested in doing gymnastics for her professional
She's going to age out of gymnastics really soon, and the influencer stuff could be forever. Yeah. It's going to last as long as she wants.
That's also just the nature of the sport.
But even that,
if she were in a different sport, then maybe she could consider it, but she's
extremely
very
young.
Few professional adult gymnasts out there.
And her parents, or like anybody that loves her, is like saying like, look, you need to take a hard look at what is the most viable path forward for you, because you're going to, life is long and you got to make a living, right? Like, so they have to do that, and they're going to have to figure out, like, and this is going to happen to a lot of those athletes, right? And even then, even if she was a higher ranking athlete, like, she's going to, like, they'll even say, like, you'll age out of that, because like eventually is she going to want to get married? Is she going to want to have kids? Like it's going to be a type of thing where it is kind of one of the downsides to being a woman is you're on a clock. A lot of times people consider you to be on a clock as far as these types of things. And it's something you can't approach with indignancy like so many feminists do. You have to approach it with a sense of realism and understand that it may not be fair, but that's the way of the world.
So there's a biological clock, but there's also like an expiration date to being an influencer too.
Absolutely. That's
because once the looks fade, what do you have left, and like what do you want to remember?
Activia with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah,
you make.
I wanted to get your perspective on this, Brett, because like it kind of reading about this kind of made me wish like I had been pushed into some like random hobby or sport or whatever at like a toddler age and just gotten really, really good at it, because like regardless of the fact that you didn't choose it, you can still become really good at something and find it fulfilling, even if it was your parents' idea in the first place. And that's what happened for her. And that's what happened for you.
Hockey?
Yeah.
I mean, look.
I mean, you were pushed into a sport that you didn't necessarily choose.
We
just
were
for yourself.
On ice skates before I could walk.
Yeah.
On the pond, but that's like what that is like. A lot of people. One of the biggest trends I see online that I really dislike is people who like they take a really negative approach to any parent that tries to share something with their kids. They're like, you're pushing your kid to do that. Like, to me, when your parent does it, it's a very like, if you're taking the most unfair and grim view of it, it's like, yeah, they're forcing you into it. But if you're a balanced human being and you're not a nut job, what you understand is like, this is something your parents loved and they're looking for a way to connect with you. So they're sharing something they loved themselves with you.
Well, sometimes it's not that.
I'm just speaking from my experience, right? So I fell into that because my dad loved hockey and I loved hockey too. But then he had to kind of accept that, like when I quit hockey for skating, he had to accept that, I didn't want to play hockey past high school. I wanted to skate. That was what mattered.
But then again, it's like you got into skating because of hockey.
Yeah.
So you would have never ended up doing that if he hadn't essentially forced you to do it.
I think everyone could benefit from getting involved in some type of, especially physical
activity. I had very
activity.
hands-off parents who didn't want to force me to do something like gymnastics.
They're better off doing that. Pushing you into sports would have been
and not letting you quit. Like, I feel like that's a huge part of every childhood, is that point where you want to quit something and your parents don't let you, no matter how badly you want to. And in the long run, you end up it ends up being one of the best choices.
Yeah.
Like, I really do think that everyone, not just like I started off in hockey and baseball, which were team sports, and moved to skating, which is a highly individual activity, which suits my personality better, right? You find yourself along the way, but it's also like, I think that's also part of, like, guys are more prone to wanting to do sports.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think that they there are like studies on this that men are more likely to have just a random hobby, like
multiple
random hobbies. They're more likely to go through like phases of fixated interests, whereas women spend more of their time doing like unpaid labor, like childcare or housework or whatever, or like they spend their leisure time or their hobby time actually socializing with other women. Like their hobby would be having female friendships. So men are less.
Well, we all know that's a lie. No, I'm kidding. It's a joke.
Men need friendships with the same sex less than women do.
Oh, I don't know if I disagree with that. I think.
Well, I mean, this is just what they found from like survey.
Am I right, guys?
This is what they found from like survey data of like.
Well, that survey
what goes away first when a woman is in a high stress environment where she's in survival mode. Her female friendships fall off first. And that women find more fulfillment from socialization with other women rather than a random hobby that's more insulated and individualized.
That's because the bros, first of all, the bros will coalesce around the hobby a lot of times, where they're like my brother, he still plays softball on the weekends, like, right? He's in a softball league. Yeah. Or you go and you golf with the bros. The homies are the homies,
That's not really a thing with women. Like women will just meet up at a coffee shop.
And just talk for hours.
Just talk and talk and talk.
And also there's a great meme, right? It says like, why is it that like women will go out to brunch and come home with 500 photos of each other, but guys will go and spend an entire fishing trip weekend with their friends and have not a single image of it. Men.
There will be nothing to display on the slideshow at your funeral because you're too busy enjoying the moment.
And honestly, like, I think that's the way to go. Like, it sounds a bit cynical, but it's like that always felt more real to me. It's kind of like I said yesterday, like the couple that posts all the time on social media about how happy they are tends to feel to me like the least happy of the couples that you meet, right? It's like they doth protest too much.
Yeah.
So if you and your girlfriends post, oh my God, Queen, 500 photos of us getting eggs, the really overly expensive eggs at brunch. It's pesto. That's a Bill Burr skit. Like that always feels very surface level to me. And maybe I'm biased because I'm a dude, but like the men's ability to just kind of like, you can go like months without talking to them, right? You don't take offense to it, but then when you do talk, it's like you just pick back up where you left off. Whereas like, I would imagine that if a woman doesn't hear from her female friends for a while, she's going to wonder why they're not talking to you. I don't think for a second that there's a nefarious reason behind not hearing from the bros for a while, because they got stuff to do, right? So. Right. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.